Look at this! Look at this! Look at this! How are you not already sewed? Noppy's Trustmaster reward is a materia that boosts equipment attack by 100%, so long as your unit's holding a single weapon, and boosts your limit burst gauge fill rate by the same amount as well. If you participate in the ongoing event, then you'll get the opportunity to tack on an additional 50% attack buff. It's simple, to the point, and ultimately rather effective. The Super Trustmaster reward is the Kupo Sword, which is currently the strongest greatsword in attack. It's a two-handed weapon with an excellent range of damage variance and has an additional Dragon and Beast Killer buff alongside an automatic 250% attack buff. Onto her active abilities. Kupo Strike deals increased damage to break gauges with a greatsword. Look what I found out, Kupo! It's Libra with 3 evasion stacks. Clumsy Swing is steel, but it chains with Bolting Strike. Moogle Mimic copies any stat buffs and physical killer buffs from any one ally and places it on Noppy, then grants both parties a HP barrier. Earth-Shattering Claw deals earth damage that chains with Stardust Ray and lowers the enemy's earth resistance by 120%. Kupo Barrage deals damage that chains with Stardust Ray and gets stronger with each use. Kupo Swing partially ignores the enemy's defense and chains with Bolting Strike. The Looted Defender is a physical cover. In terms of mitigation, it's not the best that's out there, but it's certainly on the higher end of the spectrum. I'll Protect You, Kupo raises your team's defense by 250%, grants them a 40% physical mitigation buff, and an additional 30% physical mitigation buff against Beast and Dragon enemies. Adorable Decoy grants Noppy a Provoke buff, a 75% general mitigation buff at max level, and chains of Bolting Strike. Moogle Hero Dance can be used twice per battle. It grants your team a 50% general mitigation buff, a 40% physical mitigation buff, boosts Noppy's limit burst gauge by half its max capacity, and raises the damage modifier of all of your team's physical attacks except for their limit bursts. Passives. But for Trustmaster reward, Super Trustmaster reward, or Vision card equip, Noppy will deal increased damage against enemies of broken break gauges, raise the chance to counterattack, and gains a Guts buff. Her counterattack is called Moogle Hero Beam, and while it doesn't do much, it's absolutely adorable. If you want to build her, she'd prefer to hold a single greatsword. Though of course, you have to choose a good sword with damage variance if you want to max those damage calculations or whatever. Okay, let's be real though, are you looking at the names of these passives? Ridiculous Power? Klutzy Strength? Comical Counter? Magical Pom-Pom? All this and more, Kupo! How are you not mashing that summoning button with me right now? Next, her Limit Burst. Too slow, Kupo, deals earth damage and lets your team evade 3 attacks. Time to change forms. Noppy has a true Brave Shift, which has no limitations whatsoever. Active abilities. Ready to Rock, Kupo imbues Earth onto your team, raises their Earth damage by 15%, raises their Limit Burst damage by 100%, and deals Earth damage that chains of Stardust Ray. Cutesy Clobber raises Noppy's attack and magic by 300%, raises your team's attack and magic by 250%, raises Noppy's Limit Burst gauge fill rate by 100%, and deals Earth damage that chains of Stardust Ray. A Hero Never Loses Kupo can be used twice per battle. It steals any breaks and elemental impairs from your allies and puts it onto Noppy, inflicts an 80% full break onto your enemies, casts a re-raise on Noppy, and then she ascends to the heavens, only to rise again thanks to that re-raise buff. Passives. She gains a powerful Beast and Dragon Killer buff, and that's pretty much it. But look at the names! A hero appears, Kupo! Rise to the challenge, Kupo! Shut up and take my tickets, Kupo! On a more serious note, you'll definitely want to raise her chain cap modifier if you can to further raise her damage output. Onto her Limit Burst. Take this, Kupo, use Earth damage, lowers the enemy's Earth resistance by 135%, raises Noppy's Earth damage by 50%, grants Noppy an incredible 150% Beast and Dragon Killer buff, and raises the damage modifier of Kupo Barrage by a large amount. Let's rank Brave abilities. I'd prioritize Kupo Barrage because it's her go-to attack. Ready to Rock, Kupo, to raise your team's Earth damage and Limit Burst damage, and then Adorable Decoy to raise that general damage mitigation buff, if you plan to use it often. Time to make a damage rotation. On turn 1, activate her Brave Shift. Cast Cutesy Clobber, Ready to Rock Kupo, and Earth-Shattering Fall. On turn 2, switch back, and cast Moogle Hero Dance and double cast Kupo Barrage. Then cast Take This, Kupo, as early as you can. If you can't cast it on turn 3, just triple cast Kupo Barrage. Regardless, just prioritize Take This, Kupo, and then stick with a triple Kupo Barrage once you pull it off. On turn 6, you'll repeat the rotation again. So how good is Noppy? Her ultimate damage output is surprisingly high. While she doesn't reach the levels of her best finishers, she's certainly a very strong damage dealer. Depending on her equipment setup, she'll be able to compete with Edward and Alphonse Elric, and is far stronger than Corral. Amusingly, there's such a gap in strength in her kit. Some abilities are rather weak, like Clumsy Swing, most likely because the developers decided to take the initial submission a bit too literally. Luckily, they've made sure to add in some abilities that are definitely stronger, so she doesn't fall behind the group. The damage modifier boost from Take This Kupo is rather pivotal to reaching such heights, so don't be afraid to boost her limit burst gauge fill rate further if you can. Her support abilities are nice, but not extremely critical. The copy effects can certainly make Noppy stronger, with the additional stat buffs and killer buffs from wherever you get them, but it won't be as groundbreaking as Mastermind Zon, as he had the ability to pass those buffs to the rest of your team, and therefore grant those buffs to even stronger units. Of course, unlike Mastermind Zon, Noppy is more suited to dealing damage at this time, so for now, there's nothing really wrong with the potential boost. The team-wide Earth damage buff and limit burst damage buff is fairly ordinary, and while the attack and magic stat boost is nice, it's not really rare either. There are some incredibly outstanding abilities though. Moogle Hero Dance is a great ability with several mitigation effects and an additional team-wide physical damage modifier buff, though unfortunately you can only use it twice. Furthermore, with the ability to steal any breaks or imperils from your team, then methodically wipe them out with a clean slate, Noppy can potentially save your team from a disadvantageous scenario. The additional 80% full break is also helpful, though of course it's not a good habit to overly rely on it. Admittedly, the re-raise isn't as great as it sounds, as it also wipes any buffs on Noppy, which, depending on the flow of the battle, may not be an optimal decision. Granted, if you're in a position where you have to choose between eventual death or a slight setback, I'm sure you won't hesitate to use it. As a physical tank, she's flexible. As a tank, Noppy isn't so simple that you can say, not Gabrin's bad. She has enough defensive passives and mitigation effects to make it work, especially if you decide to include her evasion stacks as well. However, in a really cool integration of characterization, she's a bit too impulsive to commit to a defensive row, as you can see from her cover ability. It only lasts for 2 turns, and while you can use that to your advantage in fast-paced battles, it's certainly not quite as reliable as a more dedicated tank. Notably, Adorable Decoy only lasts for 1 turn as well, and while Moogle Hero Dance is a good ability, again, you can only use it twice. Overall though, Noppy's an extremely solid unit. It's the true Brave shift that really ties it all together, enabling Noppy to switch between damage, support, and tanking whenever each row is necessary. The low turn duration of her tanking capabilities is an advantage if you aptly take it into account. The support abilities can turn the tides of the battle to your favor, and her damage output is much better than Corral. She's also a Moogle hero, how are you not convinced? Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, leave a like and subscribe. Comment below if you summon Noppy. I definitely plan to get her. While it's true that her damage output will eventually be overshadowed, there's a hidden joy from the prospect of pairing her with Sephiroth. Look at this. How does this team not bring a smile to your face?